Welcome, class, to the Intro to Java Programming. In this lesson, we will review classes and constructors. Here is our basics project in IntelliJ where we last left off. We built a test to calculate net pay, but that code is only available to test. Today we will start to build a class that calculates net pay plus more. A class is where you will do a variety of work. A class is a template used to create objects. A class can be used to represent a real-world object. A class is where you put code related to a specific responsibility. Let's create a new package inside the Java main folder. Remember, there are two ways to create a new package. Click on File, New, Package, or right-click on the Java folder and say New, Package. Enter in accounting, all lowercase. Let's create a payroll class. Again, there are several ways to make a new payroll class. Let's right-click on the accounting package, select New, Java class. Enter payroll. Net pay calculator as a class name? This leads us to a Coach Joe rule. A class name like Net Pay Calculator leads us to think it only does this one responsibility. Payroll allows us to place many payroll-like responsibilities into this class. Remember, a class name should use a noun. A class can contain constructors, properties, and methods. There are other elements of the class, but for now let's focus on these three areas. Let's discuss the constructor in this lesson, and we'll go into more detail about properties, methods in the next lessons. The constructor is a block of code that is called when an object is created. This is where you would typically initialize properties before any methods are called. Remember, a class could be like a real-world object. What if I had a class that makes a pizza? I could represent the steps for making a pizza like roll out the dough, place the dough on a pan, add toppings, and cook the pizza in an oven. Every time I begin to make a pizza, I need to roll out dough and place the dough on a pizza pan. A constructor is called when the class is created and can perform some initialization steps. Rolling out the dough and placing the dough on a pan would be an excellent job for a constructor. We could also make the pizza class where the constructor didn't roll the dough out for us. In that case, we would explicitly have to do more work in our code before sending it to the oven to be cooked. The constructor can be useful in performing those initialization-like tasks when the new object is created. Let's build a test to prove the constructor works. Open the payroll test class file. From the project menu, remember it's in Java, Accounting, Payroll Test, or if the tab's already open, select the tab. Let's collapse our first test. I'm going to paste in the code for the test that creates the payroll under test object. We're also going to assert that the value is not null or that it exists. Java doesn't understand this command, so let's import the static method with option enter. Notice the import statement at the top. Class and object may initially appear to be the same thing, but understanding the difference is important. Let me try to explain this two different ways. First, a class is a template or a blueprint used to make objects. Objects are just members of a class. In this second example, look how cookies are created using a cookie cutter. The cookie cutter is the class that is a template used to make a cookie. The cookie is an object created by the cookie cutter. The end result of each cookie can be different, but must maintain the original design of the template. Try to remember that the class is like a cookie cutter and an object is like the cookie made from the cookie cutter. Let's run the unit test. Notice that the test passes. The payroll under test object is built from the payroll class and it exists. Let's put this in split screen mode. We collapse the project, split vertically, no code in the class and the test still passes may appear to be magical, but Java is doing a step automatically for us. each class has a built-in empty parameter constructor. We can physically type it out, or it is done automatically behind the scenes for us. A parameter is a value that is passed. An example is, if you were to add two numbers together, you would expect two parameters, the two numbers that you were going to add. The code shown will be discussed in more detail in the following lessons. For now, just type and follow along. Here's the code for the empty constructor. Let's set a breakpoint on the line that creates the payroll class. A breakpoint is a location where the debugger will pause the code execution. This will allow you to inspect variables and step into a line of code. Start the test with the debug option. The code stops before the payroll under test object is created. Click the Step Into button. The code stops inside the empty constructor. We can finish the test and see that the test passes. Let's turn off the split screen mode and return to the test. Let's turn off the debug break. Understanding the new keyword is important. The variable payroll under test will be a new object created from the payroll class. The new keyword is required when creating a new object. As of now, we created a class with a built-in no parameter constructor. We also typed out that no parameter constructor. Time for a Coach Joe challenge question. Can we add more constructors to this class? The two guesses are only one, and there can be many. Let's build a test that uses one constructor with a parameter. Notice the code doesn't compile. No constructor supports a single parameter. Let's build a constructor that accepts this parameter. Here's our constructor with no parameters. Here's our constructor with one parameter. Notice how we do not have any compiler errors now. Let's run the test and see what happens. Run the test, and it passes. Let's set a breakpoint, and let's see where the code goes. Run the debug. Let's step into, and notice how it calls the one parameter constructor. Run the rest of the test, and it passes. It turns out you can overload the constructor in a class. The only thing to remember is you need to have unique signatures as the incoming parameters. Overloading is a feature that allows a class to have more than one constructor provided the signature is unique. The parameters passed define the signature of the constructor. No parameters is a signature. If we pass one parameter that is a string, that is a unique signature. If we pass one parameter that is an integer, that is also a unique signature. If we had two constructors that both accept one parameter and that parameter is a string, it is not unique and would be a compiler error. You are not limited to 0 or 1 parameters. We can have many parameters of the same or different data type. You should now have a basic understanding of how to create a class and a constructor. You also learn that constructors can be overloaded as long as the parameter signature is unique. Your optional homework assignment is to have 3 or more constructors in the payroll class with unit tests that prove each constructor works. In the next lesson, we will add to the payroll class and add more functionality with methods. Remember, future senior developers, make it work, prove it works, then make it better. Ready? Break!